Blog Talk Radio.
Across the country and around the world, streaming live on the internet, it's Real Estate Coaching Radio, bringing you the latest news, interviews, and secrets of the top producers. Hosted by award-winning real estate coaches, Tim and Julie Harris.
And welcome back. This is, of course, Real Estate Coaching Radio, and we are your hosts, Tim and Julie Harris. And this is your source for unfiltered, full-strength honesty about what is truly working to get you into action and make you money in this new real estate boom. And I have some very exciting news taken right from the headlines. And, Julie, welcome to the radio show. I know you're on today.
Thank you so much. I am.
And, by the way, everyone, we have a very special guest today, Mr. Daniel Ramsey. So, Dan, welcome to the call.
Thanks, Tim.
So here's the headline, and we're going to get to Daniel's interview here in a second. The National Association of Realtors said on Monday existing home sales increased 4.9% to an annual rate of 4.89 million units. May's increase was the largest since 2011. Now, I want to really, by the way, if you guys want to read the whole report, if you want to go to our and see the video about it in the whole 9 yards, just go to realestateinsidernews.com, realestateinsidernews.com, and I've got it up there as a headline. I just posted it up there like 20 minutes ago. But here's the bottom line. We are indeed, and every bit of information you're going to see coming out is going to continuously reinforce this, at the very beginning stages of the biggest real estate boom of all of our careers. And as this new report from NAR is going to demonstrate, yes, it's happening in spits and spurts and sputtering here and there, but the bottom line is we are in what's going to be the biggest real estate boom of all of our real estate careers. That's assuming that, you know, you're in the real estate business for the next 7 to 10 years, because that's how long this real estate boom will last. If you're not experiencing the benefits of this new real estate boom, you need to go to free coaching calls for agents, freecoachingcallsforagents.com, and request a free coaching call. Because the bottom line is if you're not benefiting from this real estate boom, you need to be taking some action to learn the skills necessary so you can learn to help others take advantage of this real estate market, and in doing so will make yourself very rich. So before we get to Mr. Daniel Ramsey and we talk about virtual assistants, as we've promised all of you we would today, Julie, any interesting experiences from your coaching schedule you'd like to share with all of our listeners?
Yeah, well, it seems to be like sometimes, you know, it's sort of what's behind door number 2 because it's such a, to use your word, bifurcated market. You know, people are still dealing in some areas with short sales and foreclosures, and other agents. You know, I've got one of my students is in Utah, and his business has completely changed from almost 100% short sales to almost 100% equity sellers now. So what I'm seeing is a lot of agents needing to polish their listing skills, their objection handling skills, their presentation skills, who did very well with the distressed market. But let's be honest, you know, when you take the commission off the table when you're dealing with, say, a short sale, it's a different conversation. It's different than when you're having to compete when the seller has equity, they're spending real money on you and your commission, and they want to know actually what makes you different. So we've had a lot of fun with polishing those skills lately. And like I said, it's a little bit, you know, this call is this way. We're still doing with short sales. And then the next call, we're in a transition. And the following call, maybe we're talking 100% equity sellers. So that's what requires us as coaches to be really on top of our game, knowing what's happening across the country. And, you know, that makes our calls more fun, but also more challenging sometimes. So it's always a pleasure to coach people to get to that next level, though.
It's not like coaching people back in the boom. That was easy. But, guys,
right.
Here's a thought for all of you. When you're experiencing success in this market, keep doing what it took to get you there in the first place. In other words, you were lead generating. You were actually staying frosty. You were following up on every opportunity you had with much enthusiasm. Stop doing what's not working. So, as we've been saying for the past month or so, you guys are now at the middle stage, obviously it's June, of 2014. You're either not on track to accomplish your goals, you're on track to accomplish your goals, or you're exceeding your goals. Wherever you are, you need to own it. Take responsibility for it.
Right.
And then if you're not liking the direction you're going, do something about it. It is your responsibility. Stop blaming the market. stop blaming the Zillow and Trulia and all these other lead sources. The fact is, guys, we've been warning you for years that those lead sources were going to start to dry up. We've been warning you for years that buying buyer leads is not something that's sustainable, not something that any of you want to consider doing long term. So if you're finding that, hey, guess what, Tim and Julie were right about what they told us not to do, and that indeed that buying buyer leads is turning into a brick wall in terms of opportunity and the direction you want to continue going, it's up to you now to change direction. Julie, I had a great free coaching call, actually several today, and here it is. The guys are saying, hey, guess what? Turns out buying buyer leads does suck, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't get the results that I was promised. And I've been spending thousands of dollars per month on buying buyer leads or whatever the little silver bullet gimmick is, and now I do realize, that I have to learn the skills necessary to actually succeed. Here's the fact, guys. Those things worked years ago. Zillow, when it first started selling buyer leads to you guys in 07 or 08, it worked brilliantly. And we were telling our coaching students to jump on board and get an opportunity at buying those leads because it wasn't oversaturated. What does that mean? There was no Trulia was just getting started really, and Realtor.com was sort of, taken, I think, by surprise in many ways by what Zillow was able to do so quickly. And the reality of it is not very many agents knew about the opportunity buying buyer leads. But now all these different websites are selling buyer leads. You have Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com. You have all these other websites like your broker's website, like your website. All these sites are doing this, the same exact thing, providing listing information. You fill in, the buyer puts in their information, and then an agent's going to call. All of those things have led to oversaturation of the concept. That's the reason that the leads now, the lead quality is going down. But at the same time, is your price per lead going down or going up? It's going up. The reality is this is not something you guys could continue doing. We are warning you now. It is June 2014. You are going to listen or you won't. And if you don't, I fear for what your future in this industry is going to be like. You must learn the skills to not just survive, but thrive and take full advantage of this new real estate boom. If there's anything we can do for you, obviously go to freecoachingcallsforagents.com. So, without any further delay, and we're not going to take a break today because I have a lot of ground I want to cover with Mr. Daniel Ramsey, and I know Julie's got questions about him too. Let me tell you guys how we came across Daniel, and of course we've known about his company for quite a while. And this is a simple idea. A lot of you are experiencing more success in your real estate businesses than you have in years, or maybe in some cases ever. And you need to hire an assistant. Now, we are not advocates of huge teams, and Daniel and I were talking about that a little bit before the radio show started today. We are advocates, obviously, and you hiring an assistant. And Daniel's business is a fantastic direction for all of you to head because it allows you to have the benefits of a full-time assistant without the expense and the hassle. So we're going to get deep into that now. So without any further delay, Mr. Daniel Ramsey, welcome to today's radio show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tim and Julie. It's exciting.
So, Daniel, we were just talking prior to the show, and you were telling me a story about one of your clients who was spending, I think you told me, over $100,000 a month on his staff, which, is not unusual if we're being honest. So tell that story again so all the listeners can benefit.
It's actually a great story, Tim. And the crazy thing is, a couple months ago, we were looking, I'm like, how old is our company? And I wondered, and so I pulled up our first invoice, and it was from this exact same client. So as of May, we're now a 6-year-old company. And this particular client came to me, and he knew that I was outsourcing my own personal real estate practice. And he said, hey, Daniel, could you help me? He ended up hiring 17 of our virtual assistants, cutting all the bad – you said having a huge staff is hard. It's really hard when you have 15, 20 people in your office. You got to provide office space. You got to provide phones. You got to provide computers. Then you got to deal with the drama. Then you got to deal with people who have personality conflicts and all that kind of craziness. So he came to me and said, hey, would you help me build a virtual team like yours? And I said, yeah, sure, but I got to charge you. And that was the beginning of my outdesk. We went from $100,000 a month payroll in his company down to under $30,000 a month, and he ran a very, very profitable business moving forward.
Well, so you just said something very interesting, and you were mentioning all the downsides of actually having your own assistants work for you, but the one thing you didn't mention, and depending on their state, it could be the biggest downside, and that's the tax implications of having actual employees. and that's getting extremely onerous. So let's just jump right in. Now, you and I were talking today prior to the radio show. We were discussing the fears and the misconceptions and maybe some of the myths about hiring a virtual assistant. And Julie, obviously jump in any time with any thoughts or questions that you might have. So walk us through, Daniel. How does it work? How does someone, give us the whole 9 yards. Answer all the typical questions that an agent might have. Help them overcome the fears of doing business with you.
Well, actually, what I'm going to do first is just answer everybody's thought in their head. Like, everybody that's your audience right now is saying, yeah, virtual assistants save money. How does that work? But what should I have them do? Like, that's always the first question that you have to ask yourself. Like, how can a virtual assistant help my business? How can they help me be more profitable, more successful, free up more time for me to do the prospecting, right? The number one activity that we can do as a real estate agent is look for new business. And so I typically tell people there's one simple answer. A virtual assistant, or any assistant really for that matter, they should help you with anything other than prospecting. So almost every single other task, other than picking up the phone and talking to your current existing client base, that's kind of the stuff that a virtual assistant, everything from marketing, everything from the initial follow-up calls. Now, notice that I said initial follow-up calls. When you have an expired or FSBO list, that's something that a virtual assistant can help with. They find the person who says, yes, I'm interested in talking to somebody about selling my home, and then you as the agent then schedule an appointment to go out to that particular property. So a virtual assistant can help everything with, transaction coordination, listing coordination, basic office admin, research on properties. It's a huge list, Tim and Julie. It's amazing what can be done remotely to help a real estate agent. So that's probably the first question people might have. Do you guys have any questions around that?
Well, Daniel, what I'm thinking is what kind of training do they get, right? So if I'm a typical Rainmaker team leader, I'm just crazy busy right now, and I'm hiring one of your virtual assistants or several of your virtual assistants, what I hear as a coach all the time is, I don't have time to train them. And by the time I train them, I might as well have done it myself. So then they hit a wall.
Yeah, so, okay, there's two people. If you're a Rainmaker and you're a single agent, that's definitely a concern. One of the things that we do, so we're a virtual assistant, staffing company that focuses only on real estate. I'm like you guys. My business is real estate. What I love to do, what I love to be involved in is buying and selling property. That's what I love. And so we put together a 2-week training course. It's like a little bit of a boot camp or a crash course for our virtual assistants, and they go through that first 2 weeks, and we train them on simple stuff like what's a contract, what's title insurance, how does a mortgage work, all the basics of real estate. But there is that initial hump that once you've done the 2 weeks, then there's the on-the-job training, and I've got a couple little snippets about how to help you there. A great way to duplicate yourself, and I tell everybody that I always talk to, buy a software called Camtasia or Screencast-O-Matic. It's just a software that records your voice and your computer screen. What's great about that is when you do training, like let's say you're a team leader, like you said, Julie, and you're decided you need help with your listing coordination. You just got a new listing, and you want to put it on MLS. You want to put it in all the different websites. You want to make sure it's syndicated everywhere out there. You want to create a flyer. You want to do all the basic steps that we all have to do every time we list a home. Well, just record yourself doing it and talk through it. And then you have that video library about, hey, this is how we list a home in my real estate practice. I'm going to walk you through step by step all the different boxes that need to be checked. The fact is you already have that listing. You have to do it anyways, especially if you're a single agent. And so now you've got a video about how to do it. Now you do 3 or 4 or 5 more of those particular listing tasks that you have, and you've just created your video training library that you can throw on YouTube, set it to private, and only your assistant, your virtual assistant, can have access to it. And I think that's a great way to kind of make the training duplicatable, over the long run. Does that help, Julie?
Yeah, definitely. Could you, because we've got people asking, can you mention the name, those 2 things that you just recommended for the recordings? So, what is that called again? Yeah,
so there's one called Camtasia. It's like Fantasia, but with camera, Camtasia. and the other one's Screencast-O-Matic, and they're both simply, recording software. And if you have a Mac, you can just do it right there on your Mac, and just record it right there. But those are just different systems that you can use to record.
Great idea.
Yeah, well, it's a great idea because once you have it, it's set. The next time you do a transaction coordination task, for instance, you start building your checklist. First you do this, first you do that, and then you put some videos underneath each checklist. And then you have this huge video library, and you don't have to worry about training. You'll get a question once in a while, but it's not going to be a big deal.
Right. Well, what's really cool about that is agents often get stuck on, well, will they do it my way? Will they take care of clients like I take care of my clients? And by using what you just mentioned, I think that the virtual assistant is going to get a flavor for who the rainmaker is and to sort of hopefully model themselves after that. And that has to help tremendously.
Well, and another piece that is really helpful is that if you're hiring, a lot of agents get confused, like, well, I need somebody to help me with some general admin. I need somebody to help me with some marketing. It'd be great to have somebody help me with prospecting. When you hire us, we really dive deep into what it is you need, and then we put together a really thorough job description, and then we even go a step further and we say, let's figure out the ideal personality profile. Personality profile, if you're having somebody do transaction coordination for you, you want somebody who's really super detailed, somebody who loves, a process. And so you have to give it to them. You have to give them a process, and you have to show them how to do it. And so those recording softwares will help, but then you also have to hire the right person for the right job. And so at My Outdesk, we'll walk you through, like, what's important about that. Right.
That sounds like you guys do a really good job coaching the rainmaker how to do this properly, which we appreciate as coaches. So on that note, what do you think is not appropriate for a virtual assistant to do? What should agents stay away from asking them to do?
Assistants are great, but sometimes there's a line between what, because we're all rainmakers, we're all super busy. So, I like to just create a job description and really stick to that job description. One of the things that's great about a virtual assistant, if they're your assistant, you can ask them to do multiple other tasks, but let's just say, like, you've got a transaction coordinator and you say, hey, I need you to call these 5 clients. If they've never called clients before and you've never done any training around that, so I guess it's not that there's a particular task that a virtual assistant shouldn't do. It's more of you shouldn't be mixing personality types and job descriptions and tasks. You should really focus and be very specific on making measurable, attainable goals for your virtual assistants, or any assistant really, so that they're in their comfort zone. That's probably one of the bigger mistakes people make when they get a virtual assistant is like asking them to do stuff that the virtual assistant it's not their normal, like,
it's out of their wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's not in their wheelhouse. We're salespeople. You, me, Tim, we know how to talk to clients. So you don't find a nerdy, virtual assistant who's a detail-oriented, who's perfect at the numbers and process. You don't ask them to go sell people. You stick to their strengths,
So it sounds to me like you guys are pretty versed on the personality styles and strengths and weaknesses of hiring the right people for the right task.
It's all we do. We're a staffing company. We love it. I mean, we have right now, and I know this because we just did payroll yesterday, or on Friday actually, but we have 637 virtual assistants in the company, and they're all broken into basically 3 different types. So we have a sales support, like a prospecting virtual assistant. So if you're getting, like sign calls, if your prospecting expires, if you're doing, if you're doing any kind of prospecting, they're an assistant, and they'll take the top of the funnel calls. So, somebody registers at a website that you own, or there's an expired list. They'll make the initial calls, and they talk to the people and get them to raise their hand, meaning I'm interested in talking to, the rainmaker of your team. So once they get that person to raise their hand, the virtual assistant passes them off to the licensee so they can actually conduct business and get a transaction going. And that's 1/3 of our company. Another third is a marketing person. Guys, how many tasks are associated, marketing tasks are associated with real estate, right? I mean, it's insane. You got to make flyers. You got to get a sign dropped. You want to put them on social media. You want to make sure there's a single, like, web page, listing page for that particular listing. You want to wow your clients. And so there's a ton of marketing activities that go around that are really, low dollar productive stuff. And that's a great thing to outsource for $8 or $9 an hour. So that's another area that we do. And then the transaction coordination and general administrative stuff. Those are like the three things that are in our wheelhouse for virtual assistants.
Well, so one thing that agents always ask us about is, being that these are virtual assistants, they're not sitting right next to the Rainmaker at their desk in their office. Yeah. One of the things we always hear about is, how do you achieve some level of accountability?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things is, when you hire a virtual assistant through us, we have something called Mod Clock. And whether you get one from us or you try to do it on your own or you contact another company, the way you really hold somebody accountable is through constant communication. And so we use Skype, but there's GChat. There's a whole bunch of different systems to just kind of, right now you could vibe between countries. I can text somebody on their cell phone and they can get it, and then they can respond back and forth, cell phone to cell phone, and it costs nothing. So the world is truly a flat place, and there's a ton of communication stuff going. And in our company, we even go a step further. We have something called what we call Mod Clock, and it's basically a computer tracking system, so that people, they log in and they start their day, and then the system actually tracks what they're doing throughout the day. And then when they take a lunch, they hit I'm taking a lunch break, and when their computer stops moving, then it says, hey, are you on a break or something? A little pop-up comes up. So we take it even a step further, but through communication and we have start-of-day reports and end-of-day reports. So every morning the virtual assistant logs in and says, I have these 12 tasks to do, and then the client gets to see that, and at the end of the day, these are the 12 tasks that I finished, and these 2 are still pending because I needed X, Y, and Z. So we have a really, I guess the short answer, Julie, communication and systems. Those are the two. That's the short answers.
Well, so
coaches, we like those answers.
Yeah, we do, because the bottom line is they're not only getting an assistant with your company, but they're also getting a system that basically manages the assistant. They're not just getting the access to the person; they're getting a person, and you give them the whole framework to essentially create their own team, however they choose. And the cool thing also about what you're offering is that if, for example, a lot of the agents, they have cash flow that's not necessarily as consistent as they'd like it for it to be. Some of our coaching students, they'll have huge months, and then they'll not really work all that much in the winter. It's kind of normal. And so you can scale up or down. So if someone wanted to add a whole bunch of staff through you guys in the spring and the summer when their business is really strumming along, and they wanted to let that staff go, if you were dealing with real honest to God, on the ground, sitting at your desk type assistants, there's a lot of legal implications. There's a lot of hassling. There's a lot of hiring and firing. There's a lot of time-wasting garbage that you have to go through every time you want to hire an assistant. But when using a virtual assistant, you can really scale up and scale down relatively simple. Am I overstating this, Daniel?
No, and I actually want to step in here because it's so exciting for me to hear you say that. Our goal as a company, right, if you look at our mission statement, it's for our virtual assistants to become indispensable for their clients. So the hope is when you hire your first virtual assistant or first assistant period is that you're increasing the revenue because it's freeing you to do more higher dollar productive items, which generates more money. And once you start generating more money and you see the idea that leverage is good, you start realizing, oh my God, I could take this much more off my plate by hiring another virtual assistant. And that person could focus on this, and that'd even give me more time to prospect, meet people, and make deals, which is, by the way, one of the most exciting things about being in real estate, right? That's what I enjoy.
Well, that's what you get paid for. I mean, you do that. Those are the dollar productive things that, we really drill down on coaching students and agents in general to understand. Julie, what are the 5 ways that agents make money?
Well, you must generate the lead in the first place. Assuming you've done that, then you have to do great lead follow-up, pre-qualify, present, negotiate, and close. If it's not on that list, don't know why you're doing it.
That's right. And a lot of you are depending on where you are in your rebuilding or your building of your real estate business, you might be doing all the miscellaneous, $9 or $10 an hour activity stuff and those 5 activities. So, Daniel, here's an interesting question, and this is kind of it depends on your price range and all that, but at what point do you suggest that people add their first virtual assistant? I know the traditional advice is add the assistant before you actually need the assistant. We kind of don't condone that because that's a good way to get into debt. So our suggestion is you add an assistant when you've had 3 months in a row of consistent income. For you, that might be a transaction or might be 5 transactions, for 3 months in a row. But the point is you have to have the cash flow first before you add the expense. Do you find that is the most successful strategy when counseling agents on how to build their teams?
Yeah, you're spot on. The thing is, I'm a bootstrap guy. When I got into real estate back in 2004, I did it all myself. I should have gotten coaches like you guys, honestly, because I didn't have an idea of what I was doing. But that being a bootstrap guy, it required me to lead with revenue. That's a term that I love. And so, I think that a person who's growing, you've got 20 transactions, 30 transactions, and you're, a year, and you're really growing your team and you have a lot of energy and you see growth, I think that's a point that you start considering outsourcing and hiring your first virtual assistant. We have two pricing plans basically. One is full-time and one is part-time. So if you're in that 20-30 range and you're thinking about it, you could go as little as $700-800 a month, have your first assistant 20 hours a week and kind of test the waters. That's what I would kind of call it. And so I'm a big fan of leading with revenue. Now, conversely, if you're on this radio program listening right now and you're a larger guy, the concept there is you have an assistant already, you have a team around you, but you'd like them to do higher dollar productive items. And so you're taking your assistant who's licensed most probably, who can negotiate deals, who could prospect, who could get you more business, and you're saying, look, I want to take all the dumb tasks away from you. I want to take all the lowest hanging fruit, give it to a virtual assistant, and then see you become that much more of a contributor to my business. So those are the 2 times I would consider hiring a virtual assistant.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. It definitely is in alignment with our philosophy. And, there's too many times and too many competing voices out there that are telling agents to do the exact opposite. There's whole books that are written about how you're supposed to build the team and sometimes some way the transactions will come. Or, the other thing I find really unbelievably concerning, frankly, from a coaching perspective, is how many of the agents don't take the time to learn the skills, and they think that they'll hire out all the high value, they'll hire out someone to do the lead generation. They'll hire someone else. You guys can't do it that way. The reality of it is you have to learn the core skills, and you will learn the core skills faster, obviously, if you can delegate all the miscellaneous things that are time-consuming off to a virtual assistant. It just makes sense that if you have fewer hours that you have to spend on the phone closing a transaction, nursing a transaction along, you could spend that time focusing on the things that are actually going to result in, hey, guess what, more transactions. In most of the country, it's a 4-month from contact to paycheck cycle, meaning whoever you contact today, generally speaking, the first contact with a seller, let's say the seller, you list the house, you get the house sold, you get the whole process. It's going to be 4 months. Some markets, it's a lot more. I have coaching clients where it's a year. But if you are making and you're experiencing a lot of growth right now, it's because 4 months ago you were making the right moves. Are you making the right moves now? And Jason, I was thinking about your brother, but Daniel, what I'm fearful of for a lot of these guys, those that are having their best years ever, those who are making the most money ever that they ever have in their careers, it's because of what they were doing the first half of the year. It's because of what they were doing in the fourth quarter of last year. And now because they're making so much money, they're spending all their time closing the transactions, and they're doing the exact opposite of what it took for them to be successful in the first place. So you guys got to know where you are, and you guys got to get real, you have to get in contact with the fact that it does take focusing on those 5 activities, and you should ultimately, when you can afford it, delegate the rest, and that really is the bottom line. So a quick question. You mentioned pricing. Let's talk about that again. You can hire, I think I heard you say, someone to work 20 hours of real solid work for you per week, and that will cost an average how much?
So it's $700-800 a month. Here's another easy way to think about it. It's $8.60 an hour. We do part-time and full-time. It costs you $700-800 a month for part-time, $1,400-1,400 a month for full-time. And really, if everything works out correctly, and we really know that it will, because we have 637 of them. I mean, and we're 6 years old. We're growing a lot, really fast, actually. So we've got a lot of experience making these things right. If you hire somebody at $1,400 an hour, the measure for us is that person ought to free $3,000 to $4,000 worth of busy work off your plate in order for them to become indispensable. So
that's great. I love what you just
said.
Let's slow down, Daniel, and let's review that. That's awesome. That's really a great way to look at it. So what he's suggesting, guys, is if you're going to hire an assistant, that assistant has to actually become somewhat of a profit center. So he suggested if you're going to hire a full-time person for a little over $1,000 a month, that person has to you have to actually clearly in your mind, and you will, assuming you delegate correctly, that you will be able to see that you're able to make 3 to 4 times whatever you're paying them. So if you're paying someone $1,200 or $1,300 or $1,400 a month, that person, because they're taking so much off your plate, has to result in you essentially generating another $3,000 or $4,000 a month. So not only do you pay them, but you're also making a profit. Now, I heard Daniel also say that you can have somebody do lead follow-up for you. That is a huge, huge missed opportunity for so many of you. So you have 800HOMEHOTLINE.com. You have a lot of these systems that generate tons and tons of actual, honest-to-God, great leads. If you're not following up on those leads right away, you're literally wasting money and you're losing huge opportunity. Have a virtual assistant do all that for you. The way you can use a virtual assistant really is, it's unlimited. Everything that you're doing right now that's not focusing on getting in front of customers, presenting, negotiating contracts, you should at least have it in your mind as the goal of delegating all of that. You will make a lot more money. And, Daniel said it. Didn't you originally get in this business because you wanted to actually work with customers? You wanted to actually help folks buy and sell real estate? You wanted to help people? And then how many of you have just become basic paperwork pushers? It's kind of amazing, actually. So so we're kind of rounding the bend here on today's radio show. What are the typical mistakes, or how can we help a lot of these guys who are going to hire their first virtual assistant? How can we help them avoid the usual pitfalls? What are the types of the agents that are successful having virtual assistants versus the ones that aren't? What do the successful ones do? You've touched on a lot of those, but are there any 2 or 3 points that come to mind?
No, but you know what? Real quick. So first, draw a T. I mean, this is step 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to give you the 3 steps to starting out considering hiring a virtual assistant. Okay, so step 1. It's pretty simple. You grab a piece of paper, you draw a T, and you put on one side money and physical, and then on the other side you say virtual. Now, money means anything that's income-generating activity that you're not ready yet to delegate, okay? And then physical is like, if I got to run to the mailbox to drop off flyers or something like that, that's a physical job. A virtual assistant in another country, they're not going to be able to do that. But then you just go through your week and you start writing down all the stuff that you do. It's a pretty amazing exercise when you just simply take, the 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day of just jotting down all the different tasks that you do. Then you take that list and then you jump on our website. We've actually got a great website with a lot of good resources, myoutdesk.com. Jump on there. You're going to actually get videos. We have samples of job descriptions. We have customer, kind of informational, instructional videos telling people how they got successful. So then you jump on our website, you set up a free consultation, and we take your list that you just created, and we convert that for free into a job description. And you do a 1 to 2 hour consultation with one of our licensed realtors who've helped hundreds of other people just like you make the decision. See, when you call us, you're not automatically getting a virtual assistant. We don't accept everyone. We actually ask that you go through this process with us because we know this is what is the difference between being successful and not being successful. So we plan the initial step, and then we get a job description. Then the next step is just to swap mindsets. You are now part-time business owner lead generator, real estate agent, and part-time real estate coach to your new employee. Your job is to help them become successful. And so, Tim, those are the 3 steps. You got to change your mindset. You got to be ready to coach somebody into being your successful assistant. And those are the 3 steps right there.
Yep, that's perfect. I love it. So everyone, there you go. I mean, you wanted more information on how to build your team with profit first. We're going to be providing, obviously, more information from Daniel. I was hoping to have maybe Daniel on, every now and then, and we can kind of update all you guys on the ways that you can build your businesses, scale your businesses a little bit quicker using virtual assistants. The bottom line here is, those of you who've had a lot of success in the past but haven't saved a lot of money, well, this probably was a big, profit black hole, is having too many team members, not having an organizational approach to your business, not really leading with revenue. And now I know, especially those of you who are involved in our coaching programs, you're rebuilding your success based on the idea that, guess what, your product truly is profit. So, Daniel Ramsey, I want to really thank you for being our special guest on today's radio show. And for the rest of you, remember, if you need any specialized, direct-focused help, obviously go to freecoachingcallsforagents.com, freecoachingcallsforagents.com. Those of you who are listening to today's radio show in replay, we also have included a link to Daniel's website so you can learn more about the virtual assistants and how it works. So just click that link and hop on over there and understand more about what a virtual assistant can do for you. So Daniel Ramsey, thank you for being our special guest on Real Estate Coaching Radio.
Yeah, thanks, Tim and Julie. This was a fun call.
Cool. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, and I'll speak with everyone on the radio tomorrow.
This program has been a presentation by Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. For more information on our real estate coaching and training programs, visit our website at timandjulieharris.com. Remember to tune in weekdays at noon for upcoming shows, and until next time, thank you for listening to Real Estate Coaching Radio with Tim and Julie Harris.